And I give the floor to a permanent representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me also begin by thanking High Commissioner Filippo Grandi for his comprehensive and compelling briefing and realistic assessment of the conflict situations around the world, and your comments about the crucial role of this Council in effectively addressing those crises. We commend UNHCR for its tireless efforts to protect and assist millions of displaced around the world. We wish the High Commissioner all the best. As he noted, this might be his last regular briefing to the Council. Mr. President, the global displacement crisis has certainly reached catastrophic proportions, as has been noted by members today. More than 120 million people worldwide are forcibly displaced. These are not mere statistics. They represent human lives, hopes, and futures shattered by violence and injustice. At the root of this crisis lie conflict, persecution, foreign occupation, and entrenched inequalities. These man-made tragedies continue to force millions to flee their homes, often with nothing but hope to sustain them. Yet, even as displacement continues to rise, the global response remains unequal, unjust, and woefully insufficient. Developing countries, many grappling with their own socio-economic challenges, continue to shoulder the greatest burden. Meanwhile, developed nations, despite their greater resources and moral obligations, have increasingly turned inward. Physical and political barriers have been erected, closing doors to most in need. Mr. President, the Middle East remains profoundly affected by the consequences of unresolved conflicts and illegal occupation, resulting in some of the world's most prolonged displacement crises. The right of return for Palestinian refugees, as affirmed by UN General Assembly Resolution 194, remains unfulfilled. Prolonged occupation and recurrent cycles of violence have produced successive waves of Palestinian refugees. Millions of others displaced from Syria, Yemen, and other conflict zones across the region continue to await conditions conducive to voluntary, safe, and dignified return. The situation in Sudan is equally alarming. The ongoing conflict has displaced millions within and beyond Sudan's borders. Urgent and concerted efforts are needed to end the violence and ensure humanitarian access and assistance. Elsewhere, crises across Africa, Latin America, the Sahel, and Europe further exacerbate the global displacement challenge. Mr. President, in Afghanistan, decades of conflict, economic collapse, and persistent insecurity have produced one of the most protracted refugee situations in history. For more than 4 decades, Pakistan has upheld a proud tradition of compassion and hospitality, hosting one of the world's largest and longest-standing refugee populations. Despite associated economic and security challenges, Pakistan has provided shelter, protection, and opportunities to millions of Afghans, besides facilitating the resettlement of Afghan citizens to third countries. Mr. President, the existing architecture for addressing refugee situations, conceived in the aftermath of the Second World War, is no longer adequate for today's complex realities. The principle of equitable burden and responsibility sharing, as enshrined in the Global Compact on Refugees, remains largely unfulfilled. While developing countries host 85% of the world's refugees, many developed countries continue to shrink asylum spaces, tighten immigration policies, and reduce resettlement quotas. This is not burden sharing, it is burden shifting. A fundamental rethink is urgently needed. Allow me to highlight a few key points. First, we must address the root causes of displacement. The Council must act decisively to prevent new conflicts, resolve protracted ones, and promote the peaceful settlement of disputes in accordance with international law. Forced displacement must be categorically rejected. Second, equitable burden and responsibility sharing must be operationalized. Humanitarian and development support to refugee hosting countries must be timely, predictable, and delivered through grants, not loans that further strain national capacities. We also urge donors to significantly increase financial contributions to UNHCR, commensurate with the growing scale of global displacement. Third, we call on developed countries to establish multi-year resettlement plans with fixed quotas, ensuring that resettlement processes are efficient, predictable, and inclusive. States with greater resources should also open more legal avenues for migrants and asylum seekers. Finally, voluntary repatriation and sustainable reintegration must be prioritized. Fully funded programs, greater development aid to countries of origin, and investments in critical infrastructure are essential to creating conditions for safe, dignified returns. Mr. President, Pakistan firmly believes that the path forward is clear. The primary drivers of displacement, unresolved conflicts, foreign occupations, and systemic denial of rights must be addressed through the collective will and effective action of this Council and the international community. This duty is not merely a political obligation. It is a moral imperative that is deeply rooted in human history. In Islamic tradition, the Hijrah, the migration of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, stands as a timeless symbol of the pursuit of safety, dignity, and justice in the face of persecution. It is from this journey that the Islamic calendar begins, a reminder that migration, though born of hardship, can give rise to new beginnings built on compassion, solidarity, and resilience. As we confront today's global refugee crisis, let us be guided and inspired by the exemplary responses from history based on acceptance, not rejection, hope, not indifference, and not walls, but bridges of humanity. We are encouraged by the comments around the table today, particularly the role that this Council can play in addressing the refugee crisis by actively working to peacefully resolve conflicts. And we will work with fellow members to advance that objective. I thank you.
I thank the Permanent Representative of Pakistan for his statement.